Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Pre-Turkish channel here at YouTube, and welcome to, of course, another album of the week. This, of course, is episode number 81. Now, since last week was a anniversary milestone pick, this week is going to be no different, and of course, it will be no different for the next following weeks from now. But this week is, of course, a anniversary milestone pick. And since, of course, seeing the title and, of course, the artwork, I don't think the sound needs any more introductions. That's, of course, is none other than Paranoid, the second album from, of course, I think these guys pretty much already surpass the fucking Legends tag. I think they pretty much surpassed that. These guys are literally fucking infinite. I mean, right now I can think of a word, but right now me trying to think of any other word that would best describe the fucking monolith, that of course is Black Sabbath. I think the word legend, I don't think cuts it anymore, because these guys have basically surpassed the fucking word legend. They pretty much might as well be the embodiment of what the word legend is, but calling them legends, I think in many ways, is basically underestimating the fucking name that is Black Sabbath, and this album right here is no different. I mean, already earlier this year, I had, of course, spotlighted their first album, which, of course, had reached 50 years old. This album, just 4 days from now, at least of you watching this, because I'm recording this on, of course, a Saturday. But since this is, of course, has been uploaded on a Monday, it'll be 4 days from now when this album hits 50 years old, because it was released on September 18th, 1970. And again, given how many people seem to have downplayed Black Sabbath by the time, back in 1970. I mean, when the first album came out, it was already, it's been reiterated plenty of times how a lot of magazines, including Rolling Stone, definitely for sure gave plenty of negative reviews towards the first Black Sabbath, basically calling them, in some ways, maybe even deeming them probably the most mediocre band. And before we really get any further, this is why I probably shouldn't even use the terms of how can they follow up such a album, because at this time, I don't know how many people actually thought that way at the time, especially towards a band like Black Sabbath. I mean, you probably would say this, would use that kind of terminology towards, let's say, Led Zeppelin or Cream or Jimi Hendrix, but Black Sabbath really wasn't kind of seen as that in 1970, but in this day and age, for anybody that probably goes in and checks out the first Black Sabbath and never really checked out Paranoid, and will probably be like, holy fuck, this is a great debut album, they'll be like, well, now I'm curious how Paranoid is going to sound. But in 1970, I don't think many people actually thought that way. But since we're going to try and use that terminology here in the fucking 2020, let's definitely see how they did. And you know what? They pretty much did in many ways, probably in some way, shape, or form, kind of topped the first album. I mean, the first album is a fucking milestone record. It's basically, again, it's pretty much considered the album that birthed heavy metal, but Paranoid is no fucking slouch. And yes, I'm going to drop as many F-bombs as possible because we're talking about goddamn Black Sabbath, everybody. I am probably should be allowed to at least throw in a couple of cuss words in here, just to at least to show my freaking again, just to express myself on how legendary this band is. And yes, I did use the word legendary, even though I said I think the Black Sabbath kind of surpass the word legend. But I digress. I don't want to try and make this video any longer than at least maybe 10 minutes. But we're probably going to go on almost 20 minutes probably talking about this record. Well, let's definitely see. So, in many ways, I think they easily probably made a record that's easily just as good, if not even better than the first album. Again, like I just stated, the first album may be credited as the album that birthed heavy metal, but Paranoid, again, is no goddamn slouch. I mean, let's definitely run down. I mean, producer Roger Bain is still back on board, but I should definitely point out that the engineer on this album is, of course, none other than Tom Allom, though he's going by the name Tony Allom on this album, but it's definitely the same person, especially if you were to go on Discogs and Wikipedia. It will, of course, would redirect you to, of course, Tom Allom's fucking page, his profile page. And it's definitely something it's time to throw on Judas Priest connections, because both Roger Bain and Tom Allom also went on to produce albums for Judas Priest. Roger Bain produced the very first Judas Priest record, Rock'n'Rolla, and Tom Allom, of course, is best known for producing some of Judas Priest's biggest records in the 1980s. I mean, of course, beginning with 1979's classic live record, Unleashed in the East, spanning all the way to, of course, Ram It Down, and, of course, returning in, of course, 2018 or 2017 with, of course, Firepower. Even though they were recording the album in 2017, but it wasn't released until 2018. Still, the fact that we got both these two future Judas Priest producers working on this milestone follow-up. I mean, many people always talk about the sophomore slump, but how many people actually consider Black Sabbath to be the band that, in many ways, surpassed the whole thing of a sophomore slump? Because of, at this point, it's crazy that any people would think of bands that would have a sophomore slump, because Black Sabbath, obviously, right here, again, pointed with, of course, Paranoid here, this album is really is just as equal to the very first record. I mean, let's now just run down the goddamn track listing on this album, okay? We got 8 songs here. There's not really as, I wouldn't say proggy, but there really isn't as much long songs on here, but they're just as equally as heavy and as jammy as anything on the first album. I mean, the first half of this album, especially on side 1, good lord, we have 4 classic goddamn tracks on here that pretty much that fills this first half of the album, from War Pigs, Paranoid, Planet Caravan, and Iron Man. I mean, again, the anti-war song War Pigs, again, is, and yes, it is an anti-war song. Anybody that thinks otherwise should take a damn hike, especially to those fucking Christian evangelicals. You fucking idiots, it's an anti-war song, but I guess some of you probably do promote war anyways. I digress. I hope if that pissed off anybody, you know what? I have no apologies. Anyways, still, it's a classic fucking track. It gets played plenty of times on commercials and so on, but it's a freaking classic track, and it's heavy too. Paranoid, another classic track off of here, and of course, Planet Caravan, one of the earliest ballads for the band. It's also very psychedelic in some ways, but it's a freaking effective track too. Of course, Pantera covered it within later their career, but who gives a shit? Still, it's definitely just a good track nonetheless. Kind of, again, a little, I wouldn't say it breaks up the pacing of the first half, but it is kind of something, because then you're being kicked in the teeth with 2 heavy hitters, and then, of course, in some ways it slows down a bit. Then it's back to another heavy hitter. That's, of course, is none other than the classic, iconic track, Iron Man. Good lord. as a kid, I played this track over and over again, probably due to, of course, my dad and the fact that it's named Iron Man, who was, again, my dad being a big comic book freak. But still, just a killer track. Just definitely both classics. I mean, War Pigs, Paranoid, and Iron Man are pretty much songs that get played quite a bit on radio to begin with, and in commercials and TV and movies, TV shows, so on. It's pretty. These are like the 3 most used songs off this album, but they're still good. But the second half of here almost can be seen as deep cuts, even though they're not really deep cuts because of some of these are still fan favorites. But this is probably the closest. So I think the album's deep cuts is the second half. I mean, from Electric Funeral to, of course, Hand of Doom, which is actually an anti-drug song, though more so anti-hard drug, because obviously on the follow-up album, Master of Reality, they would do Sweet Leaf, which is actually an ode to marijuana. I digress. Still, Hand of Doom is definitely another heavy track too off this one. Then, of course, Rat Salad, which is an instrumental, but good God, it's a jam track. This is definitely in many ways still in line with the very first album, but it's a freaking great rocker. And of course, ending with Fairies Wear Boots. All these 4 songs are just great, and be quite honest, the whole record's fucking great. I mean, all with these 8 songs, everything clocks in around just a little over 41 minutes. Actually, according to Metal Archives, it's basically 42 minutes. But still, good God, every bit of these songs are just fucking great to begin with. Definitely, in many ways, it is deserving of the fucking praise. I mean, the fact that Black Sabbath released 2 heavy hitters in 1970 and both are pretty much credited as being the birth of heavy metal is definitely, it's definitely, doesn't really shy away from anything. Just great. Definitely, again, just fucking milestones. I mean, of course, I also talk about the first Deep Purple Deep Purple and Rock. I talked about this. They say the first record, but that's actually a lie there and not really factual. So, still, I mean, talking about we got again. This is now the 3rd Black Sabbath record I've actually talked about this year, because again, I also spotlighted Heaven and Hell. But goddamn. This is pretty much considered, this right here is pretty much the cream of the crop when it comes to, of course, great follow-up albums. Again, everyone always talks about sophomore slumps and makes that bands are more guilty of sophomore slumps, but Black Sabbath really is one of the few bands, or one of the rare bands, that have never really, that actually pretty much in many ways don't really fall in line with the sophomore slump, because many people, again, pretty much hold Paranoid in such high regard. It's just, again, it's considered one of the most classic albums, and it's crazy that many people think that bands will still have a sophomore slump and never tend to really use. I don't know how many. I've never noticed it. How many people tend to really consider Black Sabbath as one of the few bands that broke that sophomore slump trend, because this is far from the fact that I even will ever talk about sophomore slumping in this video. But the thing is, it's just crazy that many people still try and say, "Oh, I hope that this band doesn't have a sophomore slump," but yet they never really never really see, and it's weird. I don't see many people say, "Well, Paranoid, it's one of the greatest second albums of all time." So. Just crazy, and I definitely digress. So this is a classic record, 50 years well seen. Just great, just a great fucking album. So with that, since I know that this album is definitely hitting its 50 years, I know some of you are probably already have been inspired to probably pull out your copy of Paranoid just to listen to it. But for those who probably haven't listened to it, which, just like I said in my, of course, last week's Album of the Week video, which of course was for Painkiller, I'm basically gonna say, why the fuck would you not have heard Paranoid? If you haven't heard this album, You shouldn't even be listening to this video. You shouldn't even be watching this video. You should be going out and grabbing a copy of Paranoid, since it's pretty much going to be at every single store that at least has a damn music section. You can probably go in your fucking Walmart and actually find a copy of Paranoid on either CD or vinyl. You can, or at least a record. I probably shouldn't be using the word vinyl. It sounds tacky. Still, even though you probably know what I mean to begin with. So, you can easily find a copy of this record at your damn Walmart. And since you probably will have no hard time looking for a copy of this, you should be picking it up, buying it, taking it home, unwrapping the goddamn seal or the plastic off the damn record, get the record out of its sleeve, put it on your damn turntable if you have one, and of course listen to it. Or if you have on CD, throw in your goddamn car if you have a car that still has a damn CD player, or you've got a damn CD deck at your home. Put the, again, unwrap the goddamn plastic from the damn CD, put it in the freaking disc player, and goddamn crank that shit up fucking loud. Good Lord. The fact that I have to at least somewhat encourage anybody to actually pick up a copy of this freaking classic, it will be mind-blowing. I will blow my goddamn mind. Hell, I wouldn't even mind blowing up my goddamn brains with the goddamn 45 just to at least to even think of the fact that anybody probably or listening to this hasn't even heard goddamn Paranoid from Black Sabbath. I know it got dark there, but you know what? I have to at least express myself once in a while, because I think it's crazy that there are people out there that probably haven't heard this classic record. Alright, enough of that. Let's finally just end this. It's a classic album, and it's reached 50 years old. Bravo, congratulations. This is definitely one of the greatest albums probably ever made. So with that, I hope you all enjoyed. This every thrice I'd say I'm out. Now, see you all later. Take everyone and spin this album like a damn son of a bitch. Take care.